Hi, today we're going to go over how to answer free response questions. On your assessment, you will have several free response questions that ask you to write a structured one-paragraph response to a specific objective. Our free response questions are based on the learning objectives for each lesson that we do. So let's take a look where we can find our learning objectives. They are at the bottom of the curriculum framework. You see them here along the bottom row of each level. They are also found on the second slide and last slide of all your video lessons. And if you're going to YouTube and downloading the student template for notes, the objectives are located at the top of those note sheets as well. So I want to take a second to look at our curriculum framework, because as you see at the bottom of the curriculum framework is your learning objective. Above it is your learning goals. These are 3 questions for this particular objective that break it down into smaller, more manageable points. So if you are able to answer all 3 of these questions, which you've done in your end of lesson questions, you should be able to formulate a response to that learning objective if it appears on your assessment. So let's take a look at structuring our responses. Once we open up the assessment and we see which objectives we're being asked to write on, how do I write those? So we're going to use our learning goals, and we're going to read through and make sure we understand this is the things that this objective talks about. Any bolded words in those learning goals are good to include in your free response answer because those are significant historical terms. And if you know something about this objective, this historical time period, feel free to bring in your own information. However, what you don't want to do is just go to the internet and cut and paste information or cut and paste information from your learning objectives that you've done at the end of each lesson. A paragraph has to flow. It can't be a random assortment of information just put together in paragraph form. So the structure we're going to have you do when you answer your free response in your paragraph is called T. We're going to spill the tea. And T stands for thesis, evidence, and argument. And those are the 3 sections within your paragraph that you have to have. A thesis will lay out the argument you're making in the paragraph, and we recommend that you outline in the thesis or a separate sentence the main points you intend to make. Second, you're going to want to use historical facts and historical ideas, went too far, to support your thesis. So that's the information that you'll have in your learning objectives. What specific historical ideas did we talk about? What bolded words did we use? This is a descriptive part. You're not going to do any analysis and evidence. You're just going to show us that, hey, I know my history, and here it is. And then finally is your argument. And this is where you explain how the evidence you selected supports your thesis. And I'm going to tell you very strongly that the word because should always appear in your answer for argument. So let's take a look at a sample from period 1. Here is our learning objective. Explain how the growth of the Spanish Empire in North America shaped the development of social and economic structures over time. So at this point, we're going to take a look at the paragraph itself. And you can see I start off with my thesis. The growth of the Spanish Empire in North America, typo, that's my bad, significantly shaped the development of social and economic structures over time through the use of the caste and encomienda systems. So first of all, is that typo going to hurt or count against me? No. We know that you're writing this as a rough draft, so it's okay if you have little mistakes, especially typos or grammatical mistakes. The other thing I want to point out is I use the word significantly. to show the reader that I think that the Spanish Empire had a very big impact on shaping the development of social and economic structures. I like the word significantly. It's my go-to in my essays quite frequently to take a strong stand to show the reader that I think these are important. You'll also notice that I said I'm going to talk about the caste and encomienda systems. So when I talked about listing your main points, that's an example. I'm not going really in depth. I'm just telling the reader and sending a flag up that I do want to talk about caste and encomienda. So from here on down, I'm going to describe details of the caste system that I learned from that particular lesson. I then go on to talk about the economic structures of the encomienda system and how it worked from that lesson. Again, all of this information comes from those learning objectives I completed after watching the lesson video. Now, does that mean you take everything in a learning objective and cram it into this paragraph? No. You need to select information that's relative to what's being asked, what's important to the question specifically. Sometimes there might be things in learning objectives that are additional details, but there may not be necessary to answer the question. So you have to know what your information is that you're using. This is my evidence section. You notice it's pretty long. It consists of more than one sentence. Finally is my argument. My argument comes at the end. And there's that magic word because, highlighted so it stands out for you. I encourage you when you're doing these responses to do the same thing, to bold and highlight that word for the reader so we see that it's there. You'll notice that the start of my argument is the same as the start of my thesis. The growth of the Spanish Empire in North America significantly shaped the development of social and economic structures over time. Word for word, I just pulled it down here, put a because in there, and then I went on to explain how the caste and encomienda systems devalued the lives of people of color for the profitability of white Europeans. And that's the impact that these systems had on the social and economic system structures of the Spanish colonies in North America. Now you'll notice that I've got my T, E, and A actually listed in the paragraph. I did them bold and I did them red. I'm also going to ask that you do the same thing when you construct your response. I want to see, this is where my thesis is. And you'll notice I put the T at the end of my thesis. Then I gave my evidence, and I gave several sentences worth of evidence. But when that section is over, I'm going to cap it with a bold red E. And then I do my argument, which is also several sentences. It's usually going to be shorter than your evidence. And I cap that off with a bold red A. If you do these three things in your essay, that will allow me clearly to see what your three parts are. That also, by doing the highlight in capital here, it makes sure to remind you, do I have a because statement in my argument? If you don't, you may just be restating your historical facts. When we talk about scoring the free response paragraph, the questions are worth 5 points. Your thesis is 1 point. Your evidence is 2 points, depending on how well you do it. It's 2 points if you have excellent evidence, 1 point if you have good evidence, but it's kind of vague or maybe a little underdeveloped. You can even have a couple historical errors as long as they don't significantly shape your essay in the wrong direction and still get 1 point. If your evidence is completely wrong or it's not there, then you get 0. Finally, your argument is worth 2 points as well. 1 point for a very strongly worded argument. It has a because statement, and it explains the thesis. It describes the impact of the historical evidence. Arguments are hard, so you may come close but not quite get there 100%. That's okay. You can still get 1 point for your argument if you make a good effort and it at least in some way relates back to your historical evidence. However, if your argument is way off base, doesn't make any sense, if it's restating facts but not presenting an impact, or you simply don't have it, then you get no points. So to review, thesis is 1 point. Either you have a thesis or you don't. Make sure it stresses an opinion and makes an argument. Again, significantly is a great way to do that. 2 points for your evidence, depending on how correct and how thorough it is. And another 2 points down here for your argument. Does it clearly explain the impact of your evidence? And does it tie your evidence back up to your thesis? I'm pointing here like you can see it, but you can't. So 5 points altogether. Answers should be about this long. Don't give me a gimundo paragraph where you're putting everything in or you're transcribing what we said in the lectures word for word. We don't want that. Part of good historical writing is narrowing down the information and using parts of it that are relevant and correct to be able to express your answer. If your free responses are taking you 25 minutes to write, are there 30 sentences, you've got way too much information. They should roughly be about this long, and a free response should take no more than 15 minutes at the very most to craft. I would think most of you could probably do it between 7 and 10 minutes. You could effectively write a good free response, reread it, read through it, make sure it makes sense before you submit it. If you have questions on the free response format or the use of T, please make sure you let your teacher know, and we'll be glad to offer any clarifications for you.